Hi, thanks for joining me on another episode of the Monday Maydayology podcast. I know it's been a while, but we're back and we're going to try to keep this as regular as possible. Today we have joining us a guy who works in my department who happened to be on the Ball Road incident that unfortunately claimed the life of Captain Josh Laird. And today's guest has a very unique perspective, being that he was a rookie and this was his first fire on his first day assigned to the engine. Additionally, if you're listening to this the day that it's uploaded, it also happens to be the 4-year anniversary of the Ball Road fire that claimed Captain Josh Laird. So please join us in listening to the story. Take any lessons that we can learn from this, apply them to your own departments and to the way that you do business, and use Josh's legacy to honor him. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Monday Maydayology podcast. After quite a long hiatus, it's been a couple of months. Life got really busy for me, and this kind of took a back seat, and I almost forgot about it. And recently I've been thinking about trying to get back to it again and trying to think of guests that I could bring on the show. And I happened to work with our guest today on a detail shift. Haven't worked with him a whole lot. I remember him from the academy, and worked with him, and it kind of sparked my memory of, he was involved in the Ball Road incident in our department where unfortunately we lost Captain Josh Laird. And also, as we're recording this, it is tomorrow, but this will be available starting on the 4-year anniversary of the incident. So I think it's going to be a great way for us to honor Josh's legacy by getting another perspective of that incident and releasing it on the anniversary. So today I have joining me Marcus Donato. Marcus has 4 years on the job currently and is assigned to Station 16 in the Woodsboro district of Frederick County. The time of the incident, he was a brand new rookie on the job at Station 3. So, Marcus, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about your background a little bit. So, tell me anything you want as far as growing up or getting onto the job.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in northern Baltimore County, the Hereford zone. If anyone's familiar, I went there. Did my schooling in Hereford, and then went to Towson University, and I studied criminal justice. And I was there. I was in Towson for 5 years. So I, as I was getting through the program, I think 2 or 3 years in, I pretty much realized that I didn't want to do the police department route, but my parents still wanted me to get through college. They still wanted me to do all this. And I met a buddy who volunteered up in Hereford, the Hereford Volunteer Fire Department, and he went through the college with me, and he persuaded me to come take a visit, come take a look around. And I went to Hereford. I signed up. I volunteered there for a little bit. They put me through Fire One, but it really wasn't doing it for me at first. And I continued through college, and then I graduated college, and that's when I started applying for departments around me. So I applied for Baltimore County, Howard County, Baltimore City, Montgomery, Frederick. I applied for them for a couple of years, and while I was doing, working, I worked as a bartender. And then eventually in 2020, October of 2020, I got the final offer from Frederick County. And then in, January 4th of 2021, I ended up starting my first day at Frederick County's academy. But that was pretty much the run up. I knew I wanted to do some sort of service work. I wasn't sure if it was going to be, police department, fire department, military, but that sort of progress is what I was going towards. Knew I was going to join one of the three, and that one kind of just, it got me first.
Yeah, well, that's cool, man. I'm glad. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad to have you on our department.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah. It was a good time working with you the other day. Cool. So when you got hired, how old were you?
I was 24 years old, and I turned 25 in April of the academy.
Gotcha. So you were 25 years old at
Yep.
the time of the incident.
I was 25 at the time of the incident, yes.
Um, what was the academy like for you?
It was everything that I hoped it was going to be. I knew it was going to be, I had a feeling it was going to be hard. I had a feeling that it was going to be maybe not exactly like a military boot camp. I'd never been in the military, but I had an idea of what it was going to be like, and it met those expectations. I had a blast. I loved it. We had a pretty unique academy where we were coming at the tail end of COVID. We really didn't know that COVID was going to continue or fall back, but it was in the early 2021, and we ended up losing. I mean, you were there for the whole thing. We ended
Yeah.
up losing 15 guys to the academy, which is unusual. But I look back fondly at those times. We had a lot of fun. It was a lot of stress, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that COVID was such a big thing when you were there.
Yeah,
Um,
we wore the masks every
oh man,
day, PT'd
dude,
with the masks on.
insane.
Yeah,
Just
it was a lot.
insane shit that we did, man. Shit that makes no sense looking back, but at the time, obviously.
Yeah, we had those
Yeah.
COVID tests every Monday that now Captain Goforth, but then Lieutenant Goforth was, dressed up in a gown every Monday morning, swabbing our noses, and
Yeah.
PT, telling guys that we PT'd with masks on, they didn't. It was different. It was different
Yeah.
experience.
Definitely was. Cool. So you went through recruit school. You
Yeah.
graduated. You weren't one of the 15 that got axed.
No, thankfully.
Yeah. So you get assigned to Station 3.
Yeah.
So those unfamiliar, Station 3 is the firehouse downtown Frederick City. As far as foot traffic goes, it's definitely the busiest firehouse. There are people walking around all day and all night. There's traffic, and I would say it's probably not the busiest firehouse, but they probably run the most diverse set of calls, I would say, between all the units there.
And it's a
So
pretty, we have a fully staffed rescue squad, which is pretty unique to the station.
yeah,
Uh, but, yeah, it's pretty busy there.
that's the only hard staff rescue squad in the whole county department.
Yeah.
Um, so Station 3 staffs an engine company, a rescue squad, and 2 ambulances.
Yeah.
So those that are unfamiliar with how our department works, when you first come out of recruit school, the first 3 weeks, you don't even count as staffing yet. You ride as an extra person on the ambulance. And the goal of that 3 weeks is to basically, you're there with an evaluator, right? And
Hmm.
you run as many EMS calls as you can, transports to the hospital, you get evaluated, and you get cleared to be a standalone provider on the ambulance. So that's the first 3 weeks. So generally speaking, your first 3 weeks you're on the ambulance, and then once you get through your ambulance stuff as part of your probationary packet, then you start working into the rotations on the suppression piece. So the day of August 11th, 2021, the Ball Road fire was your very first day on the engine company, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Now Captain Strasball, but at the time he was my first lieutenant in the field. He had an ideology that we have rookies who, and I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, but what he told me was that he felt rookies spent a lot of time and got a lot of experience on the ambulance, but they ended up in there after their rookie year not really having much, if any at all, suppression experience. So he told me if that was the day of my test to test out a session 1, and he said if you do well and you pass it, you'll be rewarded with an engine day, right? That day, Chief Scott came in, we tested, Lieutenant Strasball sat in. He felt as if I did adequate enough to be rewarded with an engine day. And he told me to pop my stuff off the ambulance and head on over to the engine that morning. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great, man. I actually like that philosophy. I hate some of the guys who just want to. I don't hate the guys. I hate the concept of just beating down the rookies on the ambulance nonstop just because they're new. 'Cause I feel like that's the time when they've got to learn all aspects of the job. And in our department, we have transport ambulances, and it's part of the job, and you are expected to be good at it. And you know that coming into it, that we rotate from ambulance to suppression. So there's really no excuse not to be good at it, and it is important.
yeah,
But like you said, there are some officers out there with that mindset of we just beat the rookies down until they're not rookies anymore.
yeah.
Um, so
And
yeah,
there's a place for that. There's a place for proving your salt on the ambulance and you know getting beat down
yeah,
in there. You need to do
absolutely,
that.
absolutely. I do think um, as the rookie, you should earn your spot in the rotation, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
But I kind of like that philosophy of you've worked really hard to get yourself cleared as an aid provider on the ambulance, and we'll reward you with this. That way, so because that day you did not count as staffing yet, correct?
not that day. No.
So you were actually an extra body on the engine.
Yeah, there was quite a few of us on the engine that day. So technician Wesley Hogue was our driver, and then Lieutenant Strasball was the engine officer, and I had the person who was staffing it was Roger Fezinen, firefighter Roger Fezinen, and then we also had a volunteer back there, Luke Stevens, who I believe he works in Montgomery County now.
Yeah, yeah,
But he, if I'm wrong about that, sorry, Luke. But yeah, there was actually the five of us on the engine that day.
yeah. So that's even better, right? Because
Yeah.
in my mind, here you are. It's your first day on the engine, and at the time, we had three-man engine companies. Since this incident, we've bumped to four, and
Mhm.
I think Station Three is actually one of the last ones that's still at three personnel.
Yeah.
Now they had a volunteer on it, which is I'm going to say anomaly. That's not the right word because I know that volunteers come in there quite some time, but they're not always riding. So um, my my point is, your very first day, you weren't there by yourself,
No.
right? So I think that's also pretty cool that hey, your very first day on the engine, you kind of are still riding with a mentor, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And Roger had a few. Like I think Roger at that time had 3 or 4 years of experience. I
yeah,
may be off by a little bit, but he had a decent amount of time on the engine to show me what was going on.
cool. So walk me through the rest of the day up until the Ball Road incident.
Yeah.
What happened for your first What happened for your first engine day?
Yeah, we actually got knocked out for. It's funny because I like to say I had two fires that day because we got put out for a brush fire on Bents, and we went out there, and there was just a little brush that power line landed on. It was raining. It was a storm that day, so we had a lot of power lines falling, and there was a little brush fire, and LT had me get the water can and stomp it out and spray it down. So that was, we like to call that the first fire of the day. But after that, I think we ran a few more, as a matter of fact, on Bents. So right before that incident, we got called down on North Bent Street, and me and LT were standing on the sidewalk, just blocking the road because the power line had fallen in the middle of Bent's. And Hogue called out the window. He started yelling, "Box, box!" And we ran on over to the engine, got in, and started flying down there. Before that, it was pretty much a normal day. Came in, did the chores, did everything, did my test, got excited that I passed it, and was able to pop on over to the engine. And but before that call, everything was a normal rainy day in Frederick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely a lot of storms, which was a contributing factor. Um,
Yes. Lightning storms.
yeah, cool. So you guys are going down the road to Urbana, which is outside of the city of Frederick. It's a couple miles outside. Urbana itself, like the town of Urbana, is pretty grown up. you know, populated, typical, small city or large town, if you want to call it. And then this incident was right outside of Urbana, but
Mhm.
in Urbana's first due. Um, they were out on another call. The engine from the Green Valley area, which is what Josh Laird was the captain of, arrived first. So, do you remember where you were in the running order for that call?
I don't remember what we were. To be honest with you, um, I do not
Yeah.
remember.
If I had to guess, knowing, we changed CAD and a lot of running orders changed, but you're probably third or fourth due. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to paint the picture here. So, what are you thinking going down the road? Right?
I'm, you know,
Brand new to the job, very
yeah,
first fire, or first day on the engine, and now you're dispatched to a fire,
I
and
couldn't
it's
believe it.
it's
Yeah,
probably I'd say maybe a 10-minute ride from Station 3 to that area, probably 10, 12 minutes.
yeah,
Um,
something like that. We kind of got stuck behind another apparatus that was having trouble getting up a hill, so we got slowed down a little bit longer.
yeah,
I think we got stuck behind a truck that was having a little hard time, and I think so. It delayed our response a little bit longer,
yeah,
but
but that's
it
a
was
that's a
it
lot of
was
time to have shit going through your head, right?
yeah, yeah. So we're responding, and we, um, I can't believe it. My first engine day, I thought, we're getting a fire, and it wasn't even sure if this was a legitimate fire or not. And it was pretty crowded in the back. Three fellas trying to pop their gear on, and that's when I didn't know the significance of the incident until I heard the Mayday come over in the engine, and I don't know if I've. It's hard to explain the feeling there of what that exactly felt. It felt surreal. It didn't feel real. Sometimes it still doesn't feel real, to be honest with you. But first day hearing that Mayday and understanding this is what the last 7.5 months, I guess, is trying to prepare us for. And Lieutenant Strawsball, he turned around with me and, pardon my French, but he turned around and he said, this is the real deal and there's no fucking around anymore. And he said, you better have your shit together. And I think pretty much time flew by, stood still and flew by until the point where we pulled up and stopped and prepared to leave to go up to the house.
So where did you guys park? Actually, let me back up. I'll paint a little bit more of a picture of this for the listeners who aren't familiar. This house is kind of out in a rural setting. It's a large, extremely large mansion, but it's also lightweight construction, and it's on top of a hill that's probably 200 yards at least from the road,
I'd say.
and it's a very steep hill.
Yeah.
So where did you guys park? Because I know some units had to run up that hill because they were blocked out.
We were one of those units. So we parked at the bottom of the hill along a tree line. I don't know exactly what road that was. I'm not familiar with that area very much. But we parked along that roadway, and it was beyond a tree line. And me, LT, Roger, and Luke all hopped out and we already had our gear on, and we began to ascend that 200-yard hill, like you said. And I mean, it was prior that day for PT. We had done 20 some flights of stairs, and we were gassed by the time. I mean, I was in the academy fit at the time, so I was in decent shape, but we were beat up by the time we got up that hill. It almost felt like a war movie, just watching the three of them running up the hill, and I'm running up behind them, and we see smoke coming from the house, and it was all a very surreal. I can't believe this is happening right now moment. I think that went through my head a tremendous amount that day. Was I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. Especially
Yeah.
with very little to no previous experience. First day, yeah, it's pretty insane. So
Yeah.
you guys get to the top of the hill. So you're full gear. It's August in Maryland, which
Yeah.
means the weather sucks,
It was.
right? It's
Yeah.
hot. It's humid. The thunderstorms just came through, so everything's probably wet,
Hmm.
still hot and humid.
Yep.
You get to the top of the hill. How gassed were you guys when you got to the top of the hill?
I can't speak for the other fellas, but I was spent. When we run that hill in the academy, and some people may not know that hill, but I know anyone who works for DFRS knows that hill. Very steep hill, and that's what they're trying to prepare you for. But there's almost nothing that can prepare you for that.
Yeah.
My lack of experience carrying all that gear, all that added weight, running up that hill with all the adrenaline pumping. I'm probably not expending my energy the way I probably should, and I was pretty spent getting to the top of that hill.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you feel like you weren't able to continue, like you were so spent that you needed to rest, or were you still ready to make it happen?
I was ready to make it happen. So I think that's a thing that our academy does really well, and it conditions you mentally and it conditions you physically and cardiovascularly in specifically for an event like that. And I think the combination of that academy workouts and the adrenaline pouring through my system prepared me to be more ready than I would have been if I didn't go through all of that.
Good. All right, so you get to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Now what?
We're on the Alpha Bravo side corner, and I at this point I am making no decisions of my own. I'm purely following my officer. I have no idea what's going on. I truly first day experience. You probably could have put anyone in the fire gear and they would have done exactly what I would have done, to just follow that guy. Follow the guy with the blue helmet. And as we were moving around, we saw crews operating on the garage that was on the Bravo side. And there was a bit of smoke that we were walking through until we got to the Charlie side, where we saw more crews operating and there was fire on the Charlie side. At that time, I saw fellas who were stuffing a ladder down a window, and I think this was in an attempt to descend the ladder and see if they could get to Chief Laird, then Captain Laird, but Chief Laird, and see if they could get the ladder down there to get to him. And Lieutenant Strasball was helping them put the ladder down. And for the life of me, I can't remember who tried to descend the ladder, but as they were trying to descend, something happened in the house, and they experienced that they quickly climbed back up as to not exacerbate the issue, become another Mayday themselves. So I think the ladder slipped or something collapsed, and they felt as if they couldn't descend further.
Yeah. This is my fault, and it's probably being rusty since it's been so long since I've done a recording, but I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves here. So
Okay.
I want to back up again to paint the picture for the audience, because I did have TJ Prier on, and he talked about his experience during this Mayday. So the story's out there, but for those who haven't listened to it, Captain Laird had made entry into the house through side Charlie, and very quickly after ended up falling through the floor into the basement of this burning house. All right, so I do know from some other friends of mine who were involved. I'm not going to say his name right now, but I know exactly who you're talking about, trying to go through the window. That was the first attempt, right? Is he went through this hole. We're going to go down this hole and get him because he's conscious, he's alert, he's talking to us. He's not injured, he's moving. So the thought was they can put a ladder in the hole, send a guy down, scoop him up, and walk him back up the ladder. I think that was the initial game plan, at least to an extent. And what happened was there's the window here, right? There's a little bit of a floor and then the hole. So the ladder came in the window and down in the hole and was resting against the wall and part of that floor that was still in place. And basically when his weight on the ladder caused the rest of that floor to collapse, and the ladder slid out almost completely, enough where he could kind of grab the window and get himself back out.
Yeah.
And I think that's when they realized that going down through that hole was going to be a no-go. And they had to look for an alternate way into the basement. I know there was a crew in the front door searching for stairs to the basement. And obviously that attempt from the Charlie side into the hole. And then I guess that leads to you guys, right? So Engine 3-1 and Rescue Squad 3, two different crews, but you guys both made entry around the same time, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I apologize if I'm using names that you, if you don't want me to use names. I don't know if those fellows really want me to say who they are, so I apologize about that. But
it's all good.
Yeah, so we did eventually move to the Delta side where there was a walk down stairs and a pair of double doors. And Rescue Squad 3's crew, when we got to that point, was working on forcing that door open. And they popped it open pretty quick. I don't know how long they were sitting there, but I think they got it open pretty fast. And at that point, I was masked up and I was ready to rock. As awful as this sounds, and I think about it a lot sometimes. Not that it would have changed anything, but there was a constant feeling in my body that we're going to get in there, we're going to find him, he's going to be crawling towards us. This is going to be okay. This is going to be one hell of a story for everybody, especially for him. And that just kept. It didn't defeat the urge. I had plenty of urgency. Like I probably didn't need any more urgency than I already had. I was already super amped up for the first fire. We had a Mayday. There was a lot going on in my mind. I don't think I could have handled any more urgency. But I think that there was something in my mind that kept saying, this is going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. We're going to find him. We're going to be fine. And they popped that door open, and all of it kind of sank away when they opened it up, and sealing the floor, black, brown smoke came funneling out of the basement. And I had my mask on, and I looked at my lieutenant, and I looked at that, and I remember from the academy, a simple thing, black turbulent smoke, that's not a good sign. That's probably really hot. And that was the very simple mindset that I had at the time, and that I still have at the time, at this time. But my heart sank a little bit when I saw that. I thought this is a lot worse than I initially had thought it was. And then it was pretty apparent that we were going to be going into the basement to do a search, and I had my Halligan bar with me, and I had a set of irons with me, and I had dropped the axe and kept the Halligan bar with me, because in my mind I could move quicker with just the bar. I don't know why I was thinking that, but it's what I did. And two guys from Rescue Squad 3 entered the structure, and I followed right in behind them. I don't know if that's something I was supposed to do. I don't know if there was, even to this day, I don't know if there was someone directly behind me who, knew I was going in, because the two guys who went in before, they were going in as a pair, and I don't know if I went in with anybody. It's still something I can't recall. I haven't really talked to anyone about it. So there's a mistake that I probably made in a bit of freelancing there. But immediately getting in, dropped to my knees, attached my left hand to the wall, and began a left-hand search. Going around, began a left-hand search. And that was entering the structure.
Gotcha. I know that Rescue Squad 3's crew ended up being the ones who found Josh and pulled him out.
They did.
So
yeah.
At some point, you and the rest of your crew were also in the basement at the same time conducting a search, I think in a different direction than the squad went. Were you alone that whole time, or did you finally meet back up with your lieutenant or the rest of your crew?
No, I was alone. Though I wasn't alone in that basement. There was a lot of guys in that basement. I think there was 10 plus firefighters in that basement that day. But the two guys from the Rescue Squad 3, they shot across the basement and met with a wall. And like Prayer told you, he told you his story, and he can tell you his story better than I can tell his story. But the moment that I heard his pass alarm, and that's when I broke away from the wall and headed a beeline to where I could hear that sound. I wanted to meet up with the pass alarm. And all the while, I was banging my Halligan bar on the ground, trying to create some noise to give them a direction to follow. And I heard other guys, it was almost a symphony of tools banging on the ground, trying to direct them into a way that they could follow out. They eventually caught onto a hose line that Fezzinan brought in, and they caught that hose line and took it straight out. But I ended up running face first into another firefighter. I don't know who it was. I have ideas of who it was, but we ran into each other. And then that's when I looked down. I saw a few lights. I saw the blinking lights of the pass. And that's when I tried to help get him out. But the bulk of the work was done by those two men on Rescue Squad 3. They did a tremendous amount pushing him out.
That's incredible, man. That's a lot to unpack. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, man, as far as just being so fresh, so green, and here you are in this basement, searching for a Mayday firefighter who I'm assuming you didn't even know him, right?
I had never met the man.
Yeah, just because you were so new and hadn't made your way around the department yet. That's pretty incredible. I can tell you that I think the fact that you went for it no matter what is pretty telling to A, your character as a fireman, and B, the training that we give at our academy. I think there's a lot of people who there's a lot of guys who might have a slight bit of hesitation anyway, but especially if it's your first time, right? Now looking back, breaking off from your officer and going in ahead of him is probably not the best idea.
No,
sure. I mean, we all make mistakes on every fire. But my thought here is that you were willing to do it, and you were willing to do whatever it takes. I think that's pretty incredible, especially definitely on a first fire.
You spoke about the academy, and I think that has such a tremendous impact on the actions that so many people took that day. The academy, our academy specifically, does a really good job at making each person operate better under stress. They take the thinking away when you're under stress. Our academy, at least when I went through it, and a lot of people that I have talked to about have similar experiences, the focus is, to what it seemed, was put these men and women under so much stress so that they can operate, and they don't think anymore. They think cognitively about what needs to be done, but you are calm under that stress, as much calm as you can possibly be. And I think that, if I was going to talk to people who are going through the academy, or they're about to go through the academy, it's going to sound cheesy, but take it seriously. Take that. Don't take the instructors yelling at you and all of this stress that they're trying to place on you as them being jerks, or them wanting to have the big ego, or they're the guys who get to tell you what to do. No, they're trying to prepare you for situations which stress is going to overwhelm you. And if they can overwhelm you for 7.5 months to the point where you can operate in those 7.5 months, you can operate under stress. Things are noisy, people are yelling at you, there's chances to fail, and you can still operate. Take that seriously. Don't take that for granted. That's a unique experience that after those 7.5 months, you will never get back. You will never be in a setting like the fire academy unless you go join a boot camp or something.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially for our academy. Obviously they're different everywhere you go.
Sure.
But 100%. I think we're known for having one of the toughest academies in our region, and I'm glad we do, because these are the results that we get.
Yeah. I don't think I would have been able to. I don't want to say I wouldn't have been able to operate, but I just have a feeling that that was that type of stress that that academy put all of us under produced something that could operate in a stressful environment.
Yeah, yeah, cool. All right, so you're down there searching. The other crew has found them. You're trying to help orient them. You get close to the door, you see the pass, and you start trying to assist those guys as much as you can.
Yeah.
So what happens once you get outside?
So initially they got to the steps, and we were pushing him towards the steps, and I heard someone. I thought there was going to be another Mayday. I heard someone behind me, pretty significantly behind me, and I thought what they were saying was that they were stuck. So I shot back to see who it was. It was our hose line was stuck. They were saying our hose line was stuck, and I looked at it and I said, "We got to get out of here. Like I'm leaving. We got to leave." And the both of us ended up getting outside, and so at that time, by he I mean Chief Laird, was taken up ascended. They ascended him up the steps. He was on the lawn. They were performing CPR on him, and I didn't go over for that. I kind of walked on my own for a little bit. I walked over and I wasn't sure what to do. I was kind of looking for another activity to get involved in. I couldn't really bring myself to walk over there yet, and I also didn't want to get in the way. That's the last thing I wanted to do. And we eventually, I've already said his name, Roger. Me and Roger got a hose line, and we took it back down into the basement. And I remember the officer of Rescue Squad 3 told me, and he was my captain, he told me, he said, "Do not enter that basement. Don't enter the threshold." Which I think we may have gone a foot in, but for the most part, we did not take that hose line back in through. We just sprayed water into darkness, really. That's all I did, was sprayed water into darkness from that doorway. So,
Yeah. And then at some point you guys got rounded up and taken back to the academy to do your debrief and statements and all that stuff, right?
yeah, we, after the helicopter landed and took Chief Laird away, they rounded up the guys who were involved in that incident, and they moved us to the alpha side of the building. There was a field there, and they moved us over there. And we went down, and we were to take off all of our gear. We put all of our gear in the engines. I think that they were going to take that gear, from what I understand. From what I can remember, we did not get that gear back for a bit of time. And that's when I texted my family. I texted, my mother, my father, my brother, my significant other at the time. I texted them all. I said, "Something happened in Frederick today. I'm okay. I'll call you later." Right? Because I figured that if they heard that something happened, they'd be worried. Because they knew that was my first engine day, and I didn't want them thinking it was me.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to keep your loved ones in mind like that. And I'm sure they did, because news of that it traveled extremely fast.
Yeah.
So what's it like afterwards then? Was there any point where you thought that, based off of that experience, that maybe it's not for you, or I don't know. Yeah, what's your thoughts about the job moving forward, and how did you move forward after the incident?
It's funny you ask that. My Lieutenant Strasball, they sent us all home that night. So after we got to the academy and they gave us that information that he had passed, they relieved us of duty, right? So we all went back to the stations and gathered our items. I know some guys stayed at the station. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to go home that night. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Sometimes I regret not staying with the guys and chopping it up a bit, but you can't go back in time. But I ended up going home. I called my brother. I think it was about midnight that I was on I-70, and I called him and I woke him up and I told him some of the information that had happened. And I got home and my parents were there and they were pretty upset. You know, they asked me what was going on, and I gave them a little bit of information, but I just kind of wanted to go to bed. And I did fall asleep that night, oddly enough. I know a lot of guys didn't. Then I woke up in the morning to a phone call from my lieutenant, and he pretty much asked me what you just said. He said, you know, how you feeling about all this? And I told him, he said, are you going to come to work the next shift? And I said, absolutely. You know, I have no intentions of leaving the department. But I told him, I said, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I don't want that. You know, that's tough. Absolutely. I can't sit here and say that's not what I signed up for. That's 100% what we signed up for. But it's not something I would want to do again, you know? And I remember telling him that and saying, I'm definitely coming back next shift. I'm ready to be there with the guys and everything. You know, I think it's going to be healthier to be there with the guys and stay home. You know, I think part of it, I know a lot of guys, his family, of course, suffered. A lot of guys in the department who knew him suffered. And I didn't know him, like you said. I didn't suffer in that regard. And I almost sometimes felt like something was wrong with me for not feeling differently about the call. You know, for months, nothing came of it. There was no, you know, you think you see in the movies how post-traumatic stress works on someone, and nothing was happening to me. I didn't feel that. Wasn't having the nightmares. I wasn't having the, you know, flashbacks. I wasn't having the fits. And it started making me feel like, oh man, maybe is something wrong with me? Like, why am I not feeling? There's something terrible happened to a guy. Why am I not feeling that? But, you know, it shows, it rears its ugly head in everybody at some point. So
yeah, I agree. Everybody who worked in our department and some of the surrounding departments, it affected all of us for sure.
yeah,
You know, different ways in different people, but there's not a person that works for us that it didn't affect.
yeah.
Yeah,
It took quite a few months. I think it was about 6 or 7 months later that it really started to hit. You know, I was having some emotional feelings on nights before I went to work, to say the least. You know, it was weird because, you know, I would be in bed before work, not scared or anything, just nervous because you're a rookie. You still got rookie responsibilities, but nothing that would cause emotions to uproar. And, you know, about 6 months in, I started getting real emotional nights before work. And it was scary because I didn't really know what it was. And as, you know, time went on, I started feeling scared that I was going to lose someone, you know, not necessarily anyone of the, just coworkers, mom and dad, you know, people just started cycling on, and that eventually showed up. It also eventually went away. You know, the bad times eventually went away.
cool. So what was the rest of your rookie year like then?
Rest of the rookie year was pretty smooth compared to that. You know, I'd say every month and a half I got an engine day. But it was, you know, you ask any guy who's been a rookie at Station 3, that's pretty much the experience. It was, you know, I wasn't treated any differently, which I prefer. I didn't want to be treated any differently. We pretty much moved on status quo. I think we did that for our own selves, and you just have to. At some point, you just have to keep going. And we did. I continued to be a rookie. I continued to ride the ambulance. I got an engine day every month and a half. You know, I eventually got on the squad, I think about a year or so in. So it all went on. You know, we all had to continue on. As hard as that sounds, and I hope that doesn't sound soulless or mean or anything, but
Yeah, man, I get it. I'm
yeah.
sure most people do too. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So if you had to pick, actually, I don't want to handcuff you to just one thing.
Sure.
We'll take as many as you can think of. What do you think are the important lessons, A, for everybody, and then B, specifically for the new guys who are fresh on the job?
Takeaways from that call.
Yeah, yeah, important lessons for people to take.
Slow down. In a scenario like that, that is easier said than done. And if I was ever put in that scenario again, someone would have to tell me to slow down. But if you can find yourself the strength and the wisdom to slow down, I didn't turn on my radio when I was in that call. So I was in that basement with a turned off radio. I went in by myself. I broke my irons in half and I had only a Halligan bar. I went through a threshold that my captain told me not to with a hose line. There was a lot of things that I was doing that could have been mitigated if I would have just slowed down a moment, which is easier said than done. So I would say that to everybody is slow down, train, operate every single time you put your radio on for a call, turn it on, get in the mindset of doing that. But yeah, again, it's hard to train for a situation like that. We do the best we can. And for new guys, like I said earlier, take it seriously. Take the academy seriously. Don't have fun. I don't want to ever say don't have fun in the academy. You're going to make friends. You're going to have a great time, but make it what it is. And what it is a very serious. It's a very serious endeavor. It's serious training. They're yelling at you for a reason. They're making it stressful for a reason. Don't be a jackass who makes fun of the fact that people are trying to prepare you for situations that you've never been involved in before. So I know there's, guys who come in, it doesn't matter their age, who come in and take it seriously or don't take it seriously. Be one of the guys who takes it seriously. That's the best advice I can give a young guy is take it seriously, because it's going to take years of experience, years that I don't have, to be able to give any advice to these guys to get experience. So I have so much way to go myself to sit here and give any other advice than that would be wouldn't be right.
I got you. Don't discount yourself though. Even with only a few years on the job, you've got at least one significant incident. But that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on. Not only that rookie's perspective on a Mayday, on their first fire, but also, there are times where the newer guys, they've got stuff to pass on too. Everybody brings something to the table. So you don't have to be a 15-year, 20-year vet to come on a podcast and talk about your experience, right? You can be fresh. Everybody brings something to the table. Is there anything else that you want to add?
There's nothing really else I can think about. I felt like I've, done quite a bit of, I've given as much information that I can remember. I'm sure I'm missing a lot, which I feel bad about that I'm missing some of that info, but
it's all good, buddy.
Memory kind of fades as time goes on.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it.
I hope I was able to give some insight there that you were looking for.
I think so. This is really good. I think it's a very interesting perspective that not many people have talked about, or that's not out there for people to learn from. So,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully, I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, I hope so. We can work together again soon.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
All right, LT. Have a good Sunday.